if you haven't, pretty much the only critical thing if you want to follow along here is having Adobe ID so that you can log into PhoneGap Build. So if you haven't done that, get that. It's free and pretty quick. Yeah, so thanks for making it this far today. You know how long these things can go, so I'll try to keep this one fairly light because I'm sure you guys are all ready for beer. Basically, we'll cover, actually, first of all, how many of you are actively using PhoneGap Build these days? Okay, a few. Has anyone never used Build before? Okay, cool. That's pretty good. So basically, the idea here will be to kind of give you a general idea of what PhoneGap Build does, and hopefully to be someone that uses it or someone that uses it. I'm sure you guys will some more efficient ways of using it. We'll also touch on signing your apps for the App Store and even kind of what that flow looks like, since you're missing another one that kind of talks about that. So we can kind of cover a bit of that as well. Give you an idea for what it takes to build an app with PhoneGap Build that'll actually end up in the App Store. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I'll try to finish early so that A, you can either just leave or you can just you know, pick something that you guys want to talk about at the end, and we can cover that too. So if you want to follow along, WILLOUGHBY.github.io will take you to this repository, and there's a bit of code samples in there that should all get you started. But I mean, the PhoneGap Build docs are pretty decent, so for getting started with Build on your own, that's probably your best resource. Okay, so I'll get started here. So I guess by this point you guys should all know the basics of PhoneGap app. Config XML is kind of your starting point. That's your configuration file. So a PhoneGap Build, if you're using PhoneGap Build, you're basically using config.xml and then your web assets, and that's it. None of the native stuff that gets added by PhoneGap Build. You don't have to manage that. You just add anything that's native will be declared in your config.xml, and then you just write the web assets. So I'm going to kind of give you just a quick, just like really quickly create a really basic app on PhoneGap Build and kind of see what that looks like. So I've already got my little app folder here that's got my really basic config XML file that you just saw. It's already got those plugins in there, but I'm not going to touch on that quite yet. And then we've got the index.html. The update I'll show you is just a little script that I use for hitting the API. So basically, I'll show you that update script. So PhoneGap Build has a REST API, and that's, if you're actively developing, it's a really good way to kind of use PhoneGap Build quickly. Basically, you don't have to manually upload each file, zip each file. You can just kind of, anytime we get some changes, you can just push it up using the API there. So basically, the script just zips up these two files, and then pushes it up to the API, up to PhoneGap Build. So I can just run that. There's an example of that on that. If you're following along, there's an example of that in that repository that I linked. So that just uploaded that app and came back with all the details about that application. It looks pretty, like quite a bit of data there for you. Basically that's there for if you're consuming this in some sort of production environment, you're consuming it. So anything that you need for your application will be there for you. But if you're just using it for building the way I am here, then you don't really need all that information. So if we actually go to PhoneGap Build now, I'm already logged in here. So there's the app you just pushed. I'm going to push it again here, just so you can kind of. So you're not going to see it. So I've got hydration just enabled here. This will change things. So just going to save that. We'll touch on hydration as well. You might have seen it in the talk yesterday from Brett. So basically, when you push that up, it'll trigger these builds, and then if you're using an Android device, there's really no setup involved for you. You just need to enable developer mode on your Android device, and if you have a QR code scanner of some kind, you guys can either scan your app, the one we just created, or you can even scan this one here. Look at this one up here. This is a good way to just share your application with testers. It's just you can actually embed that QR code as well in websites of your own, and kind of use Build, but don't tell anyone you're using Build if you want to for some reason. So that gets you a link back, and I will do that on Wi-Fi. Okay, not sure if you can see that, but anyways, that links you, that starts to download from APK file. You see an APK file and you'll be able to install that as long as you have developer mode on your phone because it's an unsigned application. So that's a pretty quick way to get an app on your phone there without having any Android SDKs installed or anything like that. So that's kind of the goal of PhoneGap Build, is to take away those aspects for people who are using it in a way that they don't need to actually be writing native code. So move forward here. So some of the other ways you can interact with Build. So that I showed you the API there a bit, but you don't actually have to use the API. You can just use the web interface. So for example, you might have seen the Star Track app. Actually, I think I know it. So that's kind of our current flagship application that demos a few features of PhoneGap. So I'm logged into, I've connected my GitHub account here, so it should, no, sorry, that won't show up there because it's not on my account. So I'll just type it right in. PhoneGap. Star Track. So now we're actually pulling directly from GitHub, and that can kind of streamline things for you. You can just push straight to GitHub and never actually upload anything directly to PhoneGap Build. You can just pull it in from GitHub. So that should speed things up a bit for you as well. It can be a great system for continuous integration as well. You can kind of hook it up to GitHub so that when you push to GitHub will tell PhoneGap Build to, using webhooks, it'll tell PhoneGap Build to pull and rebuild anyone that's using your app, depending on how you install testers and such. So there's the Star Track app that you guys may have touched on before. And then one more way to interact with Build. So you guys have probably been using the CLI throughout the day. There's also a remote command on there. So if you just type in PhoneGap remote, it'll give you a few of the commands that are available. I think I'm already logged in here, so I'll log in. be logged out already. So from here you go PhoneGap, remote, well, let's create an app first. PhoneGap create my app. And that will use the hello world template if I don't go on that. So we'll see into there. You guys see that okay? So once you're in that application, you can go PhoneGap Remote Build iOS. And you'll have to log in. And so now if we should come back to build, refresh. You see your hello world there and it's building. So these are kind of the ways that you can connect to build. The API is a really strong one. The CLI uses the API, and anytime you're automating your builds, this is a great way to do it. And getting things out to your testers quickly is really good for that. So on that page, there's a few examples of using the API. And an example of that little script that I was using to push to PhoneGap Build. That's Brett Rudd as well. Also works on Build. So while we're doing this, if you guys want to get stuck on anything, want to try something, want to branch off, and if this is too basic for you or something, then you're welcome to ping Brett. So one big one with Android, you don't really, if you're actually just doing development, installing an app on your phone, you don't need to worry about keys. You just need one signing key for when you're publishing to the store. With iOS, on the other hand, it can be a bit of a headache. How many of you are, if you were developing on PhoneGap Build right now, would you guys use an iOS device? Yeah? Hands? So half-ish. I'm assuming the rest are Android, unless there's some Windows phone guys, which is rare. So basically, I'll give you a quick idea of what it's like creating a signing key for PhoneGap Build. Basically, you need a Apple developer account. You need an Apple developer account to do any iOS development, so unfortunately, Build isn't able to get around that. So you'll log into your, this is the Apple Developer Center here. So you'll log in here. Basically, you'll need to start by, you'll need a match just for creating the certificate. Although I think it's actually possible to, I think there are ways of doing it without one, but they're quite convoluted, even more convoluted than they already are. But basically, you go into Keychain Access, request a certificate here. Enter some info, save to disk, save, yes, replace. So that just created this, what they call a certificate signing request file. So then you'll, in the Developer Center, you'll want creating a new certificate. Development cert, the only difference when you're signing for the App Store is that you'll be selecting App Store here. But for now, we're going to be actually installing this on devices for testing. So then we would upload that CSR file. I'm not going to do that because I think it'll invalidate my current certificate. But basically, you would do that, and then it would tell you certificate's ready, and then you'll find it here in the development certificates. You'll download that. Then that'll give you a certificate. And you need to import that into Keychain Access, export it as a P12, and then upload it to Build. So like I said, it's pretty convoluted, but I mean, getting around Apple's kind of very internal kind of system, we kind of had to do it this way. There's really no way around it. So once you have that P12 file, you'll then create a provisioning profile, which is basically consists of your certificate, an app ID, a unique app ID, and then also any devices, the IDs of any devices that you'll be installing onto. So it's kind of a little package that's got all that stuff. So on PhoneGap Build, go into your account, sign in keys, add a key, and then you'll be adding your P12 and the provisioning file. So the one you exported from Keychain and the provisioning file, and those are the two files you need to sign. And so when you first log into Build for the first time, the iOS builds will fail because if you haven't set that up yet. I've set it up, so these are going through. So that's kind of the gist to setting up your keys. And then you'll be able to install the app just like you did with the Android device once it's all signed. So that's kind of the gist for setting up your iOS. So at this point, hopefully we're able to test on both iOS and Android, which covers, I guess, 99% of all the devices. If you're interested in Windows, we do support it. It's a little bit flakier, and you also need the Windows Development Kit in order to sideload apps onto the phone. So it kind of takes away from Build because a lot of the point is to not have to install all those kind of things. So by having it installed that, you're missing a lot of the value of Build. But if you do want that extra, percent coverage that Windows could get you, then it's available on Build as well. Okay, next. So as far as things like plugins on PhoneGap Build, Brett touched on this again in the talk yesterday, but basically it's pretty much fully supported. Any plugins that you can install on the CLI to an app, you can install on PhoneGap Build as well. There may be side cases with kind of weird plugin structures or scripts that are happening in the plugin build process that might make that not work, but in general, all of them work on Build. You've seen declaration and everything. So, so as a quick example that you can go through there. See what we're doing for time, 5:20. I'll try to quickly create that from the little basic app I created before. So we've got just our index here. We've already got a little button there for scanning. We've got our two plugins there that we need. So we're gonna make kind of a little barcode scanner app, kind of like the one I just used to scan. So just the two plugins, the barcode scanner and the in-app browser, which launches the URL that the barcode scanner detects. The in-app browser plugin is basically just kind of an overlaid web view on top of the Cordova web view. So we've already got, all we need to do is add the actual plugin code. So I'll create a new file here. JS. I think that's already been included here. So you've got the HTML code there. You've got the so just a quick look at that actually. Cordova plugin barcode scanner code right there. So that'll scan. That'll launch the scanner. When it comes back, we'll run this callback, and then in that callback, we're going to launch that in-app browser. Here we're assuming that it's a URL In reality, you'd want to validate that probably, but this isn't reality. Alright, so we'll copy that in. Go back into that directory and I'll run that little update script that I showed you that hits the API for me. And then we go back to build, you should see it running the build. So this does take a little bit, so I guess the question while that's building, we'll look at that. So if there are build errors like this, we do provide the build logs here. So some kind of cert error, I'm going to ignore that because Windows. So yeah, that takes, it's a little bit of time to wait for those compilations every time you build. So we do provide a solution which is called hydration, which Brett touched on yesterday. That should eliminate that, which we'll show you next. But for now, I'll just show you the barcode scanner that we just hopefully made. See, there's the scanner. Now it wants to install itself, which is basically inception. But yeah, I mean that's a pretty quick way to to have just created a little barcode scanner app. A really ugly one, I'll give you that, but I don't know how to style apps. So now we'll do a quick demo. If you're following along, you can try it too. Of the hydration that Brett touched on yesterday as well. So like I said, we don't want to be running that whole build every time we change a piece of code. That kind of makes the build a little bit too much overhead there. So if you go into settings here, enable hydration. So that'll need to fully recompile the first time to install all the hydration infrastructure. But once that's ready, so if you're curious about the build times, they do vary. We've got static, or sort of, it's not static, but we do use auto scaling to kind of increase the number of build servers that are being used at one time. They do take a little bit of time to fire up, so we do like look back on all the busy times and try to preemptively launch more servers during those times, and we do respond when there are more builds happening. But I mean, at some point, someone could just hit the API and run 20 builds. We try to throttle that a bit, but we also don't want to throttle it too much. So there are going to be times when it gets a bit backed up, which is again why hydration comes into play. So let's run through the history here and show that same app. You saw this happen yesterday, I think, but I'll touch on it again really quickly. So, so we've got hydration on the phone now on that app. So if we want to make any deploy any changes, and this can be, so if you deployed this to say 20 of your testers' devices, they've got that hydration on their phone. 3-finger tap, resync them. three-finger tap, resyncs it, checks for another update. So I'll actually push an update. So I'll run that little push script. It shouldn't rebuild fully again now that hydration is enabled. It did. That doesn't matter though. The web assets are now on the server, so even though this build is happening, which it actually shouldn't have, or hopefully it shouldn't have, the web assets are there now, so we should be able to do the three-finger tap. Sorry. Which I just did. And I did the resync again, and it now knows that there's an update. And so that's kind of basically you deploy to your device again, just the web stuff. Anytime you add any plugins or anything like that, you will need to fully reinstall that app, any native code, but as far as the web assets, that'll deploy that quickly to as many devices as you've installed that app on. So that's hydration. Which I kind of jumped ahead to here. So apps created on PhoneGap Build. Once they're on the phone, it's essentially the same as an app created locally on PhoneGap. So for active development, basically your best tool is on OS X, it'll be Safari developer tools for kind of making changes on the fly. If you're using Android, Chrome developer tools. So you can kind of dynamically change all that stuff, and then once you want to see it permanently, you push it to build, use hydration to sync all your testers, and hopefully that speeds things up a little bit. Let's see what else we got here. So I touched on keys a bit already, but basically once you're kind of at a point where you're looking to publish your app, PhoneGap Build does fully support that. So I showed you on iOS, basically you're just selecting that different setting when you're creating the key. So you're selecting the production App Store key. And other than that, it's exactly the same. You won't be able to run that binary that it creates, but you'll upload that to the iTunes. Let's see if I can get it up here. So basically, once you've signed that app with a production key, you'll take it here, go into iTunes Connect, and I don't know how far I can get through here. I've never actually published an iOS app personally, but you're there. So you can basically get away with publishing an iOS app without really actively developing on a Mac. The key thing is kind of the blocker. But either you can get on a Mac just for a minute to make those keys, or to get out onto the internet and use your Googling skills. Apparently people have found ways to generate those keys on the command line, not on Macs. So check that out if that's your situation. As for Android, it's very simple to create yourself a sign-in key. I think I've got a slide there. Yeah, so that's the tool. That key tool comes, I think it's part of the Java package, so it's already on OS X, easily installable onto Windows. Generate yourself a key. It'll ask for all your personal information. And then once that's signed, you can upload it to the Play Store. Really important. This issue happens quite often, or more often than you would hope, is people losing those keys, not realizing that once they've lost that key, they can't update that app anymore. And so they come to us, and I uploaded my key to you guys, can we have our key back? And we can't do that. So it causes a bit of bumps for some people, and you guys tell people ahead of time, do not lose those keys because they are your apps. So keep that in mind when you're generating Android keys for sure, because it can cause problems. And then as for Windows, if you did want that extra 1 or less % coverage that I mentioned, basically very similar to the Android kind of process. I believe the signing keys, the tools for generating those keys do come installed on Windows. I think there's a ways to create them on Mac as well, so that again is covered. Yeah, that's a quick summary, but basically you can see the command to generate that key. Then you'll go into PhoneGap Build, go to your account. Upload your keys here, there's your Android key. When you're creating that, you'll enter an alias, so make sure you note that down. Then there's the Windows key. And then basically with all of that coverage, you've got production binaries for all 3 platforms. And hopefully you've been able to do this without having to work actually on all 3 platforms. You've been able to do that from the same machine, whatever your development environment of choice is, without the SDKs. Yeah, so once you have those keys, basically you just select them here in the drop downs, which key you want to sign with, generate those binaries.
What is the provision profile?
What is the provision profile?
Yeah.
I think I touched on that, but basically here in the Apple developer account, basically you create a certificate, so you do need to upload your certificate to build, and then you need to create a provisioning profile. That is what you were asking about, right? Yeah. So that consists, like I mentioned, when you create that, you create one actually. Development profile or an App Store profile if you're generating distributions or profile. You'll select an app ID, which you just generate. You just go into the app ID section here and create one. And then the next step would be selecting your certificate, and then if you're doing a development certificate, you'll enter the device UUIDs in there, so that those are the devices you'll be able to install on. Or if you're doing a production profile, then you won't enter those, but you won't be able to run it on any devices. So that's what that file is.
What extension does it have?
Mobile provision.
There you go, mobile provision. Yeah, 2 more PhoneGap people here if you guys have any questions. Feel free to ping them. Okay. So, like I said, Build tries to avoid, or tries to obfuscate, I guess, all of the kind of native stuff. But there are configurations that you may want to do that Build doesn't explicitly provide, like a preference for or something like that. Most of those configurations are done in either the iOS info plist file or the Android manifest. So if you want to edit those XML files, the plist is kind of an XML file. Basically, we provide this config file feature, which allows you to edit those files. An example here, so you can choose, like, there's a built-in preference in PhoneGap to lock to portrait. A portrait, I believe, if you flip your device upside down, it'll flip. So if you want to have it not flip and just have it one portrait, then that preference won't satisfy that. And there is no PhoneGap preference for that kind of detail for the orientation. So that's when you want to start modifying the actual XML yourself. So this, I mean, the caveat there is you have to get it right, otherwise your build will probably fail, or things might start operating badly. So you need to kind of know what that XML is supposed to look like. But that's all documented up there on the various the Apple documentation for the iOS plist, and same for Android. Yeah, that's kind of about all I really wanted to touch on. Is there anyone else? Anything I can cover for anyone here? Any questions? Pretty early here, so.
Well, I found that
Feedback
there are
is welcome as well, yeah.
some differences between working with PhoneGap Build and the other ways to use it,
Yeah.
the two more ways. And the documentation doesn't always provide sufficient indication on what method is used.
Okay.
So, not only me, but I teach pupils to work with PhoneGap. So I have 100 of them about every year.
Yeah.
And they are very confused if they go on the net for information. And they read a lot about CLIs and stuff like that, which they then think is necessary or something.
Absolutely.
So that's not very distinctive.
Yeah, that's really good feedback. I think trying to keep builds that are coming out of PhoneGap Build, in a perfect world, they'd be exactly the same as what you would do in a CLI, and we're striving for that. It's kind of like one of our main focuses right now is eliminating those differences. But the way that PhoneGap, or Cordova especially, the way that it's constantly being updated, constantly changing, it can be hard for Build to kind of keep up with that. So we're trying to kind of slightly redesign Build in a way that those changes will get pushed to Build automatically. When Cordova updates, Build automatically receives those updates. So just be more tightly integrated with Cordova. So, and improve our documentation, that's a big one, which definitely is.
Are they getting confused about the differences between why would you use the CLI versus PhoneGap Build?
Well, that in the first place. And
Yeah.
once they get a grip on what the difference is, then they get confused once again if they try to find some information on the plugin or whatever. For instance, if you go to the plugin via the PhoneGap Build
Yeah.
and to click through to the documentation, one of the first things is the installation of the plugin, and I believe it says something about the npm command or something like that, which they don't have to use.
Yeah.
And
Right.
well, once they get it, it's okay, but it takes some extra time to get it, and they get confused.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because we reference. Yeah, it's an interesting situation because we're consuming Cordova, but their documentation doesn't take Build into account, but we link to their documentation. So that is kind of a hard one. I think that the answer to that is Build needs to improve its documentation and make that more clear that those npm command line stuff isn't what you're looking for. It's just the config XML stuff.
And then also the small differences in the config XML, or even the place in the folder where the stuff is. The config XML is in a different place when you create a project with PhoneGap Desktop
Yeah.
than when you create your own project in PhoneGap Build, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually changed
Okay.
now. Yeah, it's very easy to
We'll
map
definitely do that as well then.
Yeah.
So it's getting more and more towards each other, that's the thing.
And that's the goal, exactly. We want them to be exactly the same. I mean, you can be constantly chasing that. Who knows if we'll actually get there, but that is kind of the ideal situation, is that if you run PhoneGap remote build versus PhoneGap just build, hopefully they would be, nearly identical APK or file. So that's still something that we're working on. Yeah. I mean, it's only been 6 years, so. Yeah.
Is there a difference in performance when I design or develop an application, PhoneGap Build or PhoneGap CLI, in the result?
No, there shouldn't be. I mean, again, we're behind the scenes, we're using the same build system that you're using when you build a CLI app, so it should be the same. I guess the things that you might encounter would be like, if you have that project available to you locally, all the native files, then you might be able to make performance enhancements that you can't on build. But
No, I
again,
mean,
you could
the
just.
usability in the result.
Sorry?
The final app the user is using, is there any performance difference?
No. No, it's the same. It's the same app. So there should be.
We were using the geofencing app, or we are actually, and we're trying to build it on PhoneGap Build, but then there was an error like Swift 2 to support it. Is that?
Yeah.
And it was going to be fixed in July.
Oh. Like this July?
This one needs a hook actually to add Swift support. You can't use them for the build.
Yeah, and Shaz on the iOS side, I don't know if he's here. That's one of his tasks that's might be coming out.
Right, so
They know it's an issue, and they're just trying to find an elegant solution to
in July.
Yeah, in July. Did we say a year on that? No, multiple people came up to me last night and mentioned that. But this was okay.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we are kind of in a transition period where build has been in kind of a static state for quite a long time. And we're trying to figure out what we should do with it to make it move that next step. And I mean, you guys are the people that we want to target, and we'd love to hear from you what you'd like to see build become or do. That doesn't have to be right now. You can ping us on Twitter or the Adobe forums or anything, so let us know. Yes.
Do you support Gradle files delivered via plugins?
Is that like the Gradle file?
Yeah, the Gradle file. So if you have a plugin that pulls in a framework and it also has to pull in a build.gradle file, is that supported on Build right now, or?
Not at the moment.
July?
Yeah.
No.
I thought it's the same, the same issue we have with build books.
Yeah.
It's just so much arbitrary.
Yeah, so you can pretty much do anything you want in a Gradle script. So.
Yeah, and talking with Eddie, like you mentioned, you allow build books, but they're from actually reviewed plugins.
Yeah, for the seller customer.
Yeah, so but you don't allow on arbitrary plugins.
No.
Yeah, so it's just a security issue.
It's probably smart not to allow like the developer.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had a talk about big screens. Is this PhoneGap Build also suitable for those devices?
Well, I guess no, because we only support these 3 platforms at the
But
moment.
for instance, a smart TV running on Android?
Oh,
that-
yeah, well, then yes, absolutely.
Haven't tried it yet, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as it's accepting an APK, if it's standard Android, then there's no reason why you can't put that on Build.
And then what about smartphones? Smartwatches, sorry?
Smart, yeah. I
Yeah.
think they're running some flavor of iOS, I think.
Oh yeah, not iOS. I don't think. Yeah. WatchOS.
Android.
Android, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, there you go. So yeah, no, not yet on iOS.
It might be worth tweeting Neil's whether he's, like, he can do it through Build. He did the talk yesterday.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you mention the docs in the game?
Right, yeah, it's definitely worth noting. These docs, which aren't, loved, done by developers, so they're kind of hideous. But we've got the new PhoneGap docs site. So we're over time adding more content to this site. We want this to be kind of where you come to figure out how you want to use PhoneGap, whether that's Build, the CLI, or whatever. We want to centralize it a bit better. That's the thing about utilizing Cordova, is that so much of the information is so dispersed. So it's good to have somewhere where you can kind of come to figure that out. I think that's kind of one of the value that hopefully PhoneGap adds on top of Cordova, is Cordova can be spread out everywhere. PhoneGap can hopefully bring all that together in one place. So you can see, soon you will see the build docs here. You can still go to all the old URLs will just end up taking you here. And we'll add hopefully better content, tutorials. That's great feedback about not knowing really how to use plugins to build. So.
There was some time, I don't know if it's still that way, but plugins, they're all always like two of the same each time. Perhaps you better have a look at it at the plugin.
Where?
Yeah, the plugins there.
On Build?
Yeah.
On here? Okay.
And then
This way, me?
yeah. Okay, then now solo again.
You were seeing duplicates?
Yeah.
No?
For a
That's
while.
not good.
And there was a version difference, so
Okay.
I didn't know why that was.
Right. Yeah, I'll comment on this repository. So yeah, so when you go to build and you click on the plugins tab, I mean we really should make this maybe even more obvious than it is here. But originally before Cordova plugins were on NPM, we let people upload their plugins straight to build, and that's where we would just basically have our own repository there. Then Cordova started centralizing them all on NPM, and that's a way better solution than us managing them. But we did, all these people that are developing kind of on older versions, we do want to keep supporting them, so we've left this here. You can no longer upload new plugins to this. You can still use private plugins here, but hopefully with the addition of private NPM plugins, that'll eliminate the need for this. We don't want to implement things on the build that are done better elsewhere, so we'll just use them from NPM.
So for new developers, it's best to straightly go to NPM.
Yes, exactly. If there was a way that we could make it so that this tab didn't show up for new developers, that would be preferable.
Okay.
Do you support plugins from private GitHub repos?
Yes. Oh, plugins from private GitHub repos, do we?
Not yet.
July. It's going to be a hell of a July.
August.
Oh, I think I'm doing July.
They don't oppose it.
What about triggers? I think you call them plugins. Like if I update code to second GitHub repository, like I want Build to start at that point.
Yeah, I think that works.
Does that work? I feel like you have to do it manually. Like every time you update code, you have to click on update or like get the latest or whatever. Like it's not automatic.
Well, with GitHub webhooks, they're just posting to a URL, right?
Yeah. Does that work right now?
I'm sure that. No.
You'd have to put your token on the
Yeah.
URL.
But we'd have to pass these parameters to the update, right? Probably to trigger pull. Yeah. So I don't think we can. We should just add a, there should be something where it's just app, whatever, app4/pull and post to that, so that's definitely worth having.
Yeah, that, I sort of touched on that in the webhooks. We are planning on doing webhooks coming in and also going out.
Cool.
So, you know, like, there'll be a page like GitHub had, but on our side as well.
Yeah. Cool.
But that's sort of on, in a plan at the moment.
July?
Yeah, July.
Cool.
Anything else? All right, enjoy Amsterdam.